Hello, it's great to see you back. In this episode, we'll revisit the case of Tarajot Singh. He murdered his girlfriend Yasmeen, a 21-year-old Indian international student who came here to study nursing and work at Southern Cross Care. She met Tarajot, also an Indian international student, and the two began a romantic relationship. However, Tarajot gradually became controlling and obsessive, leading Yasmeen to break up with him in January 2021. Unable to accept this, he harassed her, prompting police warnings. On the night of March 5, 2021, Tarajot abducted Yasmeen from her workplace, drove 400 kilometers to the Flinders Ranges, and buried her alive. Her body was found with her hands and feet tied, and soil in her lungs proved she was still alive when buried. The case took place in Adelaide, the capital of South Australia, a peaceful city on the country's southern coast. With a population of about 1.3 million, Adelaide spans an area far smaller than the entire state of South Australia, which covers roughly 380,000 square miles, forming a vibrant yet not overly hectic urban community. The city is renowned for its mild climate, cultural festivals, and rich cuisine. It's also home to a top-tier education system, attracting many international students like Yasmeen Kaur and Tarajot Singh. Adelaide is known for its relatively calm history with few serious crimes. However, the region is no stranger to harsh natural elements, from bushfires to dangerous wildlife. About 400 kilometers north of Adelaide lies the Flinders Ranges, a majestic mountain range with pristine beauty, including national parks like Flinders Ranges. It was here that Tarajot buried Yasmeen's body, turning a stunning natural landscape into the site of a horrific crime. The contrast between Adelaide's tranquility and the brutality of the case makes the story even more haunting. Yasmeen Kaur grew up in a small village called Narangar in the Sangrur district of India. From a young age, she was a gentle girl, always willing to help her family and those around her. Yasmeen lived with her mother, her older sister Gurdamanpreet, and her younger brother Sukhmanpreet. As a teenager, she faced the profound loss of her father, and this tragedy spurred her dream of becoming a nurse. Yasmeen wanted to study nursing so she could one day care for her mother in old age. Driven by a desire to explore the world beyond India, Yasmeen convinced her mother to let her study in Adelaide, South Australia. At first, her mother hesitated, worried about her daughter being far from home, but she eventually agreed on the condition that Yasmeen live with relatives who had settled in Adelaide. Yasmeen happily accepted, applied to the University of South Australia, UniSA, and upon acceptance, she eagerly began her new journey. She packed her bags, said goodbye to her family, and boarded a plane to Australia. In Adelaide, Yasmeen quickly adapted to her new life. Colleagues and patients alike adored her for her dedication, reliability, and friendly nature. Her life seemed on track. She had a job, school, and a promising future ahead. But it was here that she met Tarajot Singh. At first, it seemed like a beautiful love story. Yasmeen and Tarajot had much in common. Both were Indian, both came to Australia to study, and both were building new lives. But behind the sweet early days, a shadow slowly emerged. Tarajot Singh also hails from India, born in the village of Balala near Samrala. He grew up in an ordinary family. His father was a farmer and factory worker, while his mother was a homemaker tending to the household. From a young age, Tarajot stood out with his exceptional academic achievements. He scored 95% in his Class 10 CBSE exams and 96% in Class 12, impressive figures that demonstrated his outstanding abilities. Passionate about computer science, Tarajot decided to study abroad in Australia after completing his education at home. In 2016, he arrived in Adelaide and enrolled at the University of South Australia, UniSA, the same university Yasmeen Kaur would later attend. In Adelaide, Tarajot didn't just study, he also worked part-time as a caregiver for the elderly. He adapted well, lived stably, and appeared to be building a bright future. In 2019, Yasmeen arrived at UniSA to study nursing, and the two met. They were quickly drawn to each other by their shared traits. Both were Indian, both had left home to pursue their dreams, and both were striving in a new environment. Their relationship began as a beautiful love story, full of hope and mutual understanding. At first, everything seemed smooth. Yasmeen and Tarajot spent a lot of time together, sharing the challenges of life as international students. Tarajot's family strongly supported their relationship, even believing it would lead to marriage. But Yasmeen's family felt differently. According to her mother, Tarajot soon showed troubling signs. He frequently controlled where Yasmeen went and what she did, becoming irritated when she spent time with others. This control started as small details but gradually cast a shadow over Yasmeen's life. What seemed like a romantic relationship began to show cracks. Yasmeen felt suffocated, while Tarajot grew increasingly clingy. These quiet conflicts would soon lead to an outcome no one could have predicted. At the time, no one imagined that love could turn into a terrifying obsession. The relationship between Yasmeen Kaur and Tarajot Singh didn't remain a fairy tale forever. Gradually, Yasmeen realized her boyfriend was no longer the gentle guy she once knew. Tarajot began to control her excessively. He demanded to know where she went, who she met, who she texted, and got angry if she went anywhere without him. Whenever Yasmeen wanted to see friends or go out alone, he would call her relentlessly, pressuring her to come home. His possessiveness made her feel like a prisoner. According to what Yasmeen told her family, Tarajot didn't stop at just controlling her. He repeatedly pushed for marriage, even though she wasn't ready. Yasmeen's mother later shared that he seemed obsessed with her daughter, to the point of frightening her. Tarajot's family, however, saw things differently. They claimed Yasmeen had once wanted to convince her family to approve their marriage, but her mother and an uncle fiercely opposed it due to financial disparities between the two sides. They even said Yasmeen had fallen into depression from family pressure, and Tarajot was the one who saved her. But Yasmeen's version of the story was entirely the opposite. By early 2021, after 9 months together, Yasmeen couldn't take it anymore. She decided to end the relationship on January 4th. For Yasmeen, breaking up wasn't easy. Tarajot refused to accept the reality. He began harassing her relentlessly, stalking her on social media, following her from home to work, sending a barrage of insulting and threatening messages. He threatened to harm her family or even himself if she didn't return to him. Terrified, Yasmeen reported everything to the police. In February 2021, Tarajot received an official warning from Adelaide police for his harassing behavior. Yasmeen's family hoped this would make him stop, but they were mistaken. Tarajot's control didn't vanish. It quietly morphed into a far more sinister plan. On March the 6th, 2021, a month after Tarajot Singh was warned by the police, Yasmeen Kaur suddenly didn't show up for work at Southern Cross Care in North Plympton, Adelaide. For someone as punctual and dedicated as Yasmeen, this alarmed her colleagues. They called her aunt and uncle's house, but her family had no idea where she was either. Yasmeen was a lively person, excited about her plans to return to India after more than 3 years away from home. Her unexplained disappearance sent everyone into a panic. Her family began searching, but there were no leads. Yasmeen's aunt and uncle contacted the police, officially listing her as a missing person. To the police, the idea that Yasmeen had simply run away seemed unlikely. She had a stable life, a good job, and clear plans ahead. Suspicion quickly turned to Tarajot, her ex-boyfriend who had been warned for harassing her. With his documented history of behavior, he became the prime suspect. The police brought Tarajot in for questioning. At first, he calmly denied any involvement, claiming he was home alone the night Yasmeen disappeared. But his story soon shifted. Just a few hours later, Tarajot changed his statement, saying he had met Yasmeen and that she had taken her own life in front of him. He further claimed that in a panic, he didn't call the police and instead buried her body himself. This version raised even more doubts among investigators, as it was riddled with contradictions and lacked credibility. Tarajot then changed his story a third time, admitting he knew where Yasmeen's body was. He led the police to the Flinders Ranges, a remote mountain area 400 kilometers north of Adelaide. After a 5-hour journey, they found Yasmeen in a shallow grave. When the police discovered Yasmeen Kaur's body in a shallow grave in the Flinders Ranges, horrifying details began to emerge. Her hands were bound with zip ties, her feet tightly tied, and her eyes blindfolded. Clearly, this was not a suicide, as Tarajot Singh had claimed. Nearby, they also found her glasses, work name tag, and shoes in a trash bin. These clues drove the police to meticulously retrace Tarajot's every move to uncover the truth. Security footage became a critical key. On the evening of March 5, 2021, just hours before Yasmeen disappeared, Tarajot appeared at the Bunnings store in Melbourne, Adelaide. He calmly purchased a series of items: zip ties, duct tape, gloves, a shovel, and a plastic canister. The footage showed him at ease, even signing a COVID check-in form and chatting briefly with a staff member before leaving. An hour later, another camera captured him filling his car with gas. His composure was chilling when considering his true intentions. The police also examined Tarajot's phone and found hundreds of messages he had sent to Yasmeen and her family. 2 unsent messages, written just before her disappearance, stood out. One read, "Deep inside, I feel it but can't get past it." The other was menacing. "Bad luck for you because I'm still alive. Just wait. All of you will get your answer." These words revealed a disturbed mind and a vengeful intent. Beyond that, Tarajot had carefully prepared to cover up his crime. He borrowed his roommate's car and swapped his phone's SIM card to avoid being tracked. That night, he arrived at Southern Cross Care around 10 p.m., where Yasmeen worked, and abducted her. Though he refused to detail what happened next, the evidence pointed to a meticulously calculated plan, executed with a coldness that was hard to fathom. After abducting Yasmeen Kaur from Southern Cross Care on the night of March 5, 2021, Tarajot Singh drove away from Adelaide, heading toward the Flinders Ranges, a rugged, remote region 400 kilometers away, through the quiet roads of South Australia. For Yasmeen, those must have been hours of sheer terror. Her hands tied behind her back, feet bound tightly, eyes blindfolded, she was trapped in the car Tarajot had borrowed from his roommate. No one knows exactly what was said during that long journey, but Yasmeen's fear must have been immeasurable. Tarajot later claimed he only made a few shallow cuts on Yasmeen's neck, not enough to kill her. But the truth revealed by the autopsy was far more horrifying. Upon reaching the Flinders Ranges, he placed Yasmeen into a shallow grave he had prepared. The report showed she was still alive when buried. Soil had entered her lungs and lower esophagus, proving she had breathed and swallowed dirt in her final moments. Yasmeen likely realized her fate but was powerless in her despair. It's terrifying to imagine. What chills the blood even more is that Tarajot seemed fully aware she wasn't dead when he began shoveling the dirt. He kept going, burying Yasmeen without hesitation. Once finished, he discarded her glasses, shoes, and name tag into a nearby trash bin, then drove back to Adelaide as if nothing had happened. On the way back, he even stopped at a rest area to dispose of more evidence, as though methodically erasing every trace. The Flinders Ranges, with its pristine Australian wilderness, became the brutal endpoint of Yasmeen's life. Tarajot had hours to reconsider, but he didn't stop. His actions weren't a spontaneous outburst of emotion. They were premeditated cruelty, leaving anyone who hears the story shaken. When police found Yasmeen Kaur's body in the Flinders Ranges on March 6, 2021, they immediately arrested Tarajot Singh on charges of kidnapping and murder. His conflicting statements, ranging from denial to claiming Yasmeen committed suicide, to admitting he buried her, only fueled the investigators' determination to uncover the truth. They began piecing together the entire sequence of events, from the end of their relationship to Yasmeen's death. Security footage from the Bunnings store and gas station provided clear evidence of Tarajot's preparations. Hundreds of messages on his phone, including 2 unsent, threatening ones, revealed his disturbed state of mind and vengeful intent. Police also confirmed he had borrowed his roommate's car and swapped his phone's SIM card to avoid detection. That night, Tarajot arrived at Southern Cross Care around 10 p.m., abducting Yasmeen right after her shift. Though he refused to detail what happened in the car, the autopsy spoke for itself. Yasmeen was buried alive, with soil in her lungs before she died. The prosecution described the case with horror. They emphasized that Tarajot acted coldly, calculatedly, and cruelly. He bought supplies from Bunnings, drove 5 hours to the Flinders Ranges, buried Yasmeen while she was still alive, and disposed of evidence on the way back. This wasn't an impulsive crime, but a meticulously planned act marked by extreme inhumanity. The prosecution also pointed out his attempts to create an alibi by switching cars and SIM cards, but everything unraveled as police traced his every move. Tarajot's family denied the accusations, claiming he didn't intend to kill her and had simply lost control after the breakup. But the evidence was too overwhelming to dispute. On March 7th, he was formally charged.
The prosecutor said Yasmeen inhaled and swallowed soil that made its way as far as her lower esophagus. She was actively breathing and swallowing soil while she was alive. She had to have been aware in those moments of the hopelessness of her situation. The chilling details were heard in court by her grieving family and her killer's relatives. Singh's actions were cold, clinical and calculated. He was captured on CCTV purchasing cable ties, duct tape and a shovel from Bunnings. He even tried to create an alibi, swapping cars with his flatmate and replacing the SIM card in his mobile phone. Singh disposed of some of the evidence at a rest stop on the drive back to Adelaide. He initially denied any involvement in the murder, arguing he tried to stop Yasmeen from taking her own life. His lawyer said his client wasn't coping with the breakdown of their relationship. The judge imposed a mandatory life sentence. He'll set a non-parole period next month.
After his arrest, Tarajot Singh faced trial in Adelaide to answer for the murder of Yasmeen Kaur. Initially, he pleaded not guilty to murder, insisting he had no intent to harm her and had simply spiraled into a crisis after their breakup. But a few weeks before the official trial, he abruptly changed his plea, admitting to kidnapping and murder. This shift did little to quell the outrage from Yasmeen's family and the public. In court, the prosecution laid out the case with chilling precision. They highlighted that Yasmeen was bound, blindfolded, and buried alive, with soil found in her lungs and esophagus, clear evidence she was still breathing when buried. The prosecution called it a rare and ruthless murder, driven by revenge for Yasmeen daring to leave Tarajot. They pointed to his meticulous preparation, buying supplies, borrowing a car, swapping SIM cards, and driving 5 hours to dispose of her body. All of this proved it was a deliberate crime, not a spur-of-the-moment act. Tarajot's defense team sought leniency. They argued he lost control due to a mental collapse after the breakup, framing it as a crime of blind passion. They claimed he wasn't in his right mind, that his actions stemmed from rejected love rather than a premeditated intent to kill. The prosecution dismissed this, stressing that Tarajot's careful planning didn't align with an emotional outburst. The judge during the hearing on July 5, 2021, couldn't hide his horror. He said, "I cannot find words to describe the terror Yasmeen must have felt being buried alive. The way you killed her was utterly cruel." He concluded that Tarajot's actions displayed unmistakable coldness and brutality. As a result, Tarajot was sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of at least 23 years. At the time, he was in his early 20s, meaning if released, he'd be in his 40s and could face deportation to India. When the details of Yasmeen Kaur's case became public, her family was plunged into an inescapable nightmare. Her mother, who had reluctantly agreed to let her study in Australia, tearfully shared, "I regret letting her go. I miss her every day. No one could save her in those final hours with the worst kind of person." For her, losing her daughter wasn't just grief. It was also the torment of not keeping Yasmeen in India. Her sister and brother were equally devastated, mourning the loss of a beloved sibling. Yasmeen's family later traveled to the Flinders Ranges, where she was buried alive, to lay flowers and remember her. Though the place now evoked only horrific memories, they wanted to bring some love there, as a way to heal a fraction of their pain. They remembered Yasmeen as a girl who always helped others, dreaming of becoming a nurse to care for her mother. That bright future was cruelly snatched away by Tarajot Singh. The Adelaide community and all of Australia expressed outrage over the crime. Yasmeen, a hard-working international student cherished by colleagues and friends, made her death all the more shocking. Many felt the 23-year non-parole sentence was insufficient to punish Tarajot's brutality. On social media, discussions erupted, with numerous voices hoping he'd never be released, or even deported immediately after his term. Tarajot's family reacted differently. They denied their son was a cold-blooded killer, insisting he lost control due to rejected love. But with undeniable evidence, their words found little sympathy. The case left not only Yasmeen's family in agony, but also served as a stark warning about the dangers of obsession in love, leaving the entire nation of Australia stunned. The case of Yasmeen Kaur and Tarajot Singh is a heartbreaking tale of love, turning into a horrific tragedy. Yasmeen, a young woman full of ambition, left India for Australia to study nursing, dreaming of caring for her mother and building a new life. Tarajot, a talented international student, entered her life as a companion, but that love quickly morphed into possession and obsession. When Yasmeen chose to leave him, Tarajot refused to accept it, responding instead with a coldly calculated plan to kill her. From buying zip ties and a shovel at Bunnings, borrowing a car, swapping SIM cards to driving 5 hours to bury Yasmeen alive in the Flinders Ranges, every move Tarajot made revealed meticulously planned cruelty. Yasmeen had tried to escape him by reporting him to the police, but no one could have foreseen such a devastating end. The life sentence with a 23-year non-parole period is the price Tarajot must pay, but for Yasmeen's family, nothing can compensate for their loss. Looking back, this case leaves much to reflect on. Love, when uncontrolled, can become dangerous. Yasmeen did everything she could, breaking up, seeking help, but Tarajot chose a path beyond justification. It serves as a reminder of the importance of recognizing signs of control in relationships and acting promptly to protect oneself. Though Tarajot faces consequences, the pain of Yasmeen's family endures. They remember her as a warm girl, always thinking of others. This case isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a warning to society about the consequences of obsession and violence. Yasmeen left this world at 21, but through her story, there's hope that more people will recognize the value of safety and freedom in love. Thank you for following along. Don't forget to support the channel with a like and subscribe for the latest videos. See you next time.